Welcome csc102. This is a brand new version for spring 2020 of Ex01, and it's our SaveSable Excel assignment. I'm going to be doing this on Windows, and the first thing you're going to need to do is go to coursework and go find the file that you're going to download. You could go in here and find it and just look for Ex01, and I'm going to click on that and then scroll down and look for the file, and I'm going to right click and do save link as, and then I'll save it where I want it, and hopefully you have some kind of folder set up so that you're not just putting things all over your desktop and things like that. Set up a folder for csc102 somewhere so you can have your files in there that you're going to be downloading and that you're also going to be uploading from there. I think I have a file, so I'm going to go in here to Documents. I have a csc102 w1 folder. I'm going to go into Excel, and I'm going to save it in here. And as you save it, if you do save link as, and you don't put it in your downloads, that way you could go in here and copy over last name and put my name on the file, and then I'll save it, and then it'll download it in that folder. And if you double click on it, you can still open it. It'll be in that folder, but you can still open it up. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm working in Office 2016. This is Excel, and if it says enable editing, you're going to click on that. And just a couple things here as we get started in this kind of empty spreadsheet that we're looking at here. If you notice these things along the top with the letters, they're going to be our columns. These items with the numbers down the side are going to be our rows. And then when you click on something, they'll be identified over here in the name box. You can see right here, that's cell C1. It's identified by the column and then the row. So that's C1. The first cell is A1. And just take note that when I click on A1, SaveSable River Foundation is in that cell. And if I click on B1, which it looks like River is in there, there's nothing in there. And there's nothing in C either, in C1. So there's nothing in there. And the way this works in Excel, if there's nothing in neighboring cells, it'll just kind of extend over. Whereas down here, where this one's getting cut off, that's because there's something in the neighboring cell. It's just like if you were sitting somewhere at a concert or at a baseball game or something. If somebody wasn't sitting next to you, you'd probably spread out and put your stuff on the chair next to you or on the seat next to you, just like they're doing here. There's nobody here. So this stuff will extend as long as it's needed. But the minute something is next to it, if I just went here and put something in this cell, I'll just put some gibberish in here, you can see what happens. It gets cut off, and then that SaveSable River Foundation is cut off in A, and then this is in B2, and there's a little bit extending of my gibberish over here, and it looks like it's going into C, but there's nothing in C either. So I'm going to get rid of this because I don't need anything in there. And then when I do that, it'll let this SaveSable River Foundation kind of extend into C. So I just want you to be aware of that. And some of these columns here, notice they're too short. Their width of them is too short to display all the words. So you can go in between here, this little double arrow, and extend this. We can also set up a numerical width as well, which we'll be doing. Now the first thing we're going to do on this is we're going to merge our cells along the top. We're going to kind of center this title for SaveSable River Foundation. So I'm going to highlight A through H, and I'm actually highlighting A1 through H1, and I'm going to use something called Merge and Center, which they have right here. So I could just click that button, and it does like a merge and center all at once. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this row. Now I can't do them both at the same time because it would try to merge everything into one cell, and we don't want to do that. We want to have two merged and center kind of rows going on here. So I'm also going to highlight through this and do the same thing. And I'm going over through H, and I'm going to merge and center. Now what we're going to do next here is we're going to convert these cells plus the ones at the bottom and the ones over here to currency, because right now they're just numbers. If you click in here, it'll just say general. It's just a general number format, and we're going to make it look like money. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight these starting at B4, because I'm at cell B4, and I'm going to drag all the way over to H9. And I'm even going to highlight these cells that don't have any content in them yet, because they will. So I'm going to format them all as currency, and I'll click on the dollar sign here. And you can also click on this to change the format. You can see that's accounting. And when these get a little wider, the dollar signs will be aligned. If it's just currency, the dollar sign is always next to the number. but if it's accounting, the dollar signs are always aligned. So we'll keep it as accounting for now, and I'll hit OK. Now, if you see this stuff here, these pound signs, don't freak out like you have some kind of error or something's wrong. All that means is there's not enough room to fit those numbers in there. That's why it's saying they're actually number signs. So if I hover over here, I can actually see the value that's in there. So that's not an error. You just need to make those columns wider. And you can go in here and stretch these out if you want, but there's an easier way to do that. If you highlight, and actually you can highlight up here and highlight through the columns, and I'll go B through H and I'll highlight those columns up here. I'm going to go over to Format, and I can put in a column width. Now, I might not know what column width to put in, and Windows actually uses characters. Like there would be like 12 or 13 characters. They don't use pixels or anything like that. But I might not know, so I could go here to Format and do something called Auto Fit Column Width. What that'll do is, as long as the data is that's inside the column, it'll make it that width. So if I do Auto Fit Column Width, it'll spread everything out. And this one's going to have to go a little wider anyway. Actually, what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to center these. To center these, we can go up here to center them horizontally. They also have a vertical center here, which we'll use a little bit later, but we could center them that way. This one I'm going to center to the right, just like that. So that's centered okay, but these still aren't long enough. So I could even highlight these cells and also do a Format Auto Fit Column Width, and it'll spread them out a little bit for those. Now I'm still having issues here, so I could spread these out a little more if I want. So if I want to just kind of move them a little bit, just to tweak them, I could go in between here and just tweak them a little bit, just so they're long enough or wide enough to show the numbers okay. And like I said, this last column is probably going to have to be a little wider because we're going to have a bigger number down here, but that looks okay. And we might have to adjust that a little more as we go, but everything's okay so far. So what we're going to do next is we're going to do a little bit of math, and we're going to add up all the values in this column down here at the total. And we don't have to use a calculator or anything like that. We're just going to go down here in this cell, which is B9, and I'm going to use this auto sum. And I can just click on it. And by default, it recognizes what cells are around it that might have data that needs to be added up. So it's already selecting the cells we want. All we have to do is just hit enter. And it'll do that. Now again, I just have to stretch it out a little bit here so that number fits in because it's a bigger number now. And I might even go a little bit more. And you can see if I stretch it out, I'm actually seeing a width in characters here. So I might actually want to do this. I might actually highlight these and go back and make them 12 now that I see that it's actually using something like 12 or 13. So I'm going to use column width, and this time I'll put in 12. And that's 12 characters, not pixels. And that looks okay. I think that they're all okay now. So we'll see how that goes. Now, after I added these up, I just want to show you something. It used a formula, and it said equal sum B4 through B8. Now, that little colon there means through, because if you used a dash, it would look like a minus sign, and it would mean a minus sign. So that means through. That means this through this. So it's summing up this cell, B4, through this cell. And that's why this cell does not actually have a number in it. Even though it looks like there's a number in it, there's actually a formula in it, and that's so it can change. Because if any of these numbers changed, just for example, if this number suddenly became 0.25 or something, then that got a 0.25 as well. So that update. Now I'll put that back, but sometimes students turn in assignments and they just type in values in here. I don't want you typing in values. I want you using the formulas here. Now you could type a formula, or this way we just use the auto sum to get a formula. And also this is pretty easy too, because once we do one, you don't have to keep doing it. Like you might think, oh, I should just copy that formula to here and then copy it to here, and you could do that. But there's even an easier way. It's something called the fill handle. And you see how this has this big fat plus sign? We want to hover over this corner and get a thin plus sign. Now, first of all, this has to be selected. This cell has to be the active cell, and with that little green box around it, it's the active cell. It's selected, and that cell is B9 because my name box is showing me that's B9. So I'm going to hover over here, and I'm not going to go inside. I'm going to hover over the corner. with the fill handle, that little thin plus sign, and I'm going to drag this across under that one, and then I'll just leave go. And what it does is it copies the formula to all these cells, and it updates the formula so that when I'm on this cell, it's using C4 through C8. And this one, it's using D4 through D8, and so on. So it knows to update. That's called the relative reference. So when you copy the formula, it updates each formula because it knows that it's not in the same cell anymore. It's in a different column, and it has to use different names. So that's pretty helpful. And now this last one here, I'm going to sum this up. I'm going to click here in H4, and I'm going to be adding these up, and it will know to add those up. And if not, you can always highlight them. But if I go to AutoSum, it should highlight that box, and you can always redraw the box if it's, if you didn't want a certain value in. You could actually, if you didn't want that first value in, you could actually shorten that, and it would only do C4. Or you could actually just edit the formula. You could retype the formula. But I'm going to use it like that, and then when you're done, just hit enter. Now, if you ever mess something up, if you're clicking on things all over and something got all messed up, and obviously you could hit undo. You could do a Control Z and hit undo. But if you ever had some selection that was getting kind of messed up, and you hit AutoSum and it got some wrong things on there or something like that, and you're like, wait, I don't want that. You could always hit the escape key. That'll cancel out whatever you're doing. So you could hit escape, and that'll cancel that out. Now I'm going to do this again. I'm just going to click in this cell, H4, column H, row 4, and I'm going to hit AutoSum, and it's getting all the right data there, and then I just have to hit enter. And that added up those, and what I could do is just copy this formula by using my fill handle. I'm just going to go on this corner here, drag down all the way down, and it's going to add up everything going across. And I don't have to do anything else. I don't even have to hit enter. I just have to make it a little wider here so that everything shows up, because that's like a million, 1.5 million there. So this is all my data. So I'm going to save what I have so far. And this is basically all the formula data. What we're going to do next is just format the cells with some colors and things like that to make it look nice. And then we're going to make 2 tables from this data. But this is kind of the first part. So we're going to move on to the formatting in part 2.